My boss, Susan Anderson, is well known for her dedication and competence at work. When she has a drink, she transforms, becoming so lively that it's startling compared to her usual demeanor. However, when I ended up escorting an intoxicated Susan home, I stumbled upon a scene I never anticipated. My name is Jeff Carter. I'm 26. I'd been reassigned to a new department after working for a few years at this company, and I was having a hard time adapting to the unfamiliar tasks. "Jeff, you've made a mistake here." Guiding me through my tasks was the notoriously stern Miss Susan Anderson. At 37, she has an age-defying beauty, which captivates all the newcomers. "You've made this mistake twice now. Can you try not to make me repeat myself? I'm sorry." With her icy stare and sharp words, any glimmer of hope quickly faded away. But there are a few employees who find her harsh demeanor rather appealing. I, who have a burning desire to quickly adapt to my job, never viewed Susan as others did, as a member of the opposite sex. I lost my father at a young age, and my mother single-handedly raised me and my brother. I joined this Fortune 500 company, aspiring to repay my mom, even just a little. For this reason, I want to prove myself at work as soon as possible. Given this drive, I don't have the luxury to spare any special feelings towards my female coworkers. What's more exciting to me is the fact that Susan, one of the company's top 10 employees, has agreed to mentor me. This is my opportunity to learn and absorb all I can from her. Her strict training is challenging. It makes me want to run away sometimes, but I was brimming with determination. A few months had passed since my transfer to the new department. Just as I was beginning to adapt to my work, Susan and I were invited to a client dinner. Apparently, Susan can handle her liquor, and she becomes exceptionally lively when she drinks, always managing to enliven the atmosphere. The client seemed to enjoy Susan's company quite a bit. As her direct subordinate, I was also invited, and we were exchanging toasts over some exquisite meal. "Let's drink more. Susan, I'll drink on your behalf." At the restaurant owner's announcement about a new spirit, we decided to try it, and Susan seemed to be getting tipsier than usual. She must have been exhausted from her constant grind at work. The client, fond of Susan, kept refilling her glass relentlessly. "Pour me another." Energized, Susan was drinking at a faster pace. Although she appeared to be having fun, I didn't miss the moments when she looked worn out. "Let me have that drink, please." Since I'm a seasoned drinker, I started taking the drinks intended for Susan. The client seemed to be comprised of heavy drinkers, and once they realized that I could hold my liquor, they enthusiastically began serving me. I felt like I was drowning in the endless rounds of toasts. Susan, incessantly chatting next to me, was a stark contrast to her usual stern self at the office. Work is my life. From personal hobbies to a passion for her work. She just couldn't stop talking. But it wasn't just about herself. She was also good at engaging others in the conversation and listening. She was an eloquent speaker and a good listener. This was the phrase that came to my mind watching her. The clients left expressing their satisfaction, as they usually do, after having a delightful evening. After watching them until they disappeared from sight, suddenly, she slumped over as if the tension had left her, saying, "Sorry, I can't anymore," and hung her head low to the ground. I ended up with the responsibility of getting a tipsy Susan safely home. "Susan, is this the right place?" "You got it, probably. Wait, over there, I don't know." Ha ha ha. "Which one is it?" Since her apartment was within walking distance, I supported her staggering steps for about half an hour. Here, welcome to my castle." She giggled, pointing to her new apartment building. We finally arrived. Opening the door and seeing Susan collapse in the entryway, I was worried she might just fall asleep there. "Susan, you'll catch a cold if you sleep here. Is it okay if I carry you to your room?" Worried about her leaving the door unlocked, I waited for her to nod before entering. "Excuse me." But the moment I entered the room, I couldn't believe my eyes. That's because clothes and books were strewn about the floor, and garbage was left on the table. "Oh, sorry, it's messy, right? I think so too." "Jeff, take a seat. Have some coffee or something. It's out of character for you." Seeing this side of her that nobody at work knows, I can't help but feel a sense of superiority. Suddenly, Susan began tidying up the room cheerfully. "Susan, I'm heading home soon, so don't mind me." With the thought of letting her rest as soon as possible and not wanting to impose, I turned to leave. However, seeing her staggering as she tried to tidy up, I decided to help clean up the floor and take out the trash, even if it was meddling. "You're good at this." "I'm not efficient at work, but I'm good at housework. I've always been good at household chores. I can cook, clean, do laundry, even so." While I still struggle to work independently without Susan's support at work, I never thought my skills would come in handy here. Maybe because she's drunk, Susan is tidying up, but for some reason, she's making more of a mess. Every time she moves a pile of clothes to the laundry, she bumps into something and drops it. She confessed that she's bad at sorting garbage and eventually gave up, leaving it in a scattered state. Nevertheless, she was determined to clean up. She's my boss at work, always handling tasks efficiently. Seeing her like this, different from her usual self, makes me feel the gap for the second time today. She's kind of cute. And I thought Susan was cute. Even though we have a 10-year age difference, it's not disrespectful to think she's cute, is it? While I was thinking about this, Susan went to the balcony to get the laundry. Due to her unsteady feet, she stumbled over the step and looked pretty dangerous. I watched her, feeling anxious, and found myself staring at her colorful underwear hanging there, feeling my face getting hot. "Don't look." Susan noticed that I had seen it and quickly hid it behind her back, her face turning red as well. The embarrassment seemed to sober her up a bit, and she started to talk less. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to look." As we both felt awkward, I was gathering the trash while looking for an opportunity to leave. "Susan, is this all the trash?" I asked if there was any other garbage, and there she was, asleep while folding laundry. I covered her with a blanket and left a note. I borrowed the key that had been left out, locked the front door, and placed it in the mailbox. The following day was Saturday. It was allowing me for a slightly late wake-up. Amidst a hangover, I was cleaning my room when I received a call. It was from Susan, expressing her gratitude for taking her home and apologizing for her embarrassing behavior. Recalling Susan's actions from the previous night, a smile crept up on my face. I responded, assuring her not to worry about it, and added that I had a chance to drink some alcohol, which I don't usually do, and was actually nursing a hangover. After that, there was no further contact. Sunday ended and Monday arrived. The hangover had subsided, and I was fresh and ready to go to work when I was summoned by Susan. Had I made some kind of mistake, I wondered. Reflecting on last week's work, I followed Susan to the break room. Jeff, you were in my apartment, right?" Susan asked nervously. I felt a bit panicked, wondering if I shouldn't have entered into her room. As expected, Susan didn't remember that day. Unsure how to respond, I decided it was best not to lie and said, "I'm sorry, I guess you didn't like me entering your house." I chose to apologize sincerely. Then Susan said, "Thank you. I can't remember much after the party started. I'm ashamed I got so drunk. Jeff, you took me home, didn't you?" I had expected to be scolded, but instead, I was thanked. I responded that it was nothing, and then she said, "So, you saw inside my apartment, right? I'm really sorry you saw my embarrassing side." She bowed and apologized profusely. "Susan, please lift your head. You didn't trouble me in any way, and I honestly didn't mind." I urged her not to worry anymore, but when Susan looked up, her face was as red as her ears. "You found out I'm bad at housekeeping, didn't you?" Susan murmured awkwardly. And then, she began to talk about why she was bad at housekeeping. Susan had been working part-time since college to contribute to the medical bills of her sick mother. She and her father had been working to pay for living and medical expenses, while her sister helped with the housework. "So, I've always been indifferent to housework, and even now, I can't shake that habit. Even though I can handle work, I'm terrible at housekeeping." Susan shared her life story, looking sad. I didn't understand why she was telling me this, but when she laughed and said that all her previous partners broke up with her because she couldn't do housework, I couldn't help but interrupt. "What's wrong with not being able to do housework?" It was a genuine question. Susan looked surprised, her eyes wide. "I mean, everyone has strengths and weaknesses, right? The idea that women should naturally be good at housekeeping is outdated, I think." I stated that there's no point in being together if you can't complement each other's weaknesses, and Susan burst out laughing as if something had been lifted off her chest. "Jeff, thank you." A beautiful smile and words of thanks. From that time, I began to notice Susan. Then one day, Susan fell ill and had to take the day off. We had an urgent project going on, and a colleague named Mark stepped in to help. Mark, 36, had recently married a younger woman and was boasting about it. While the rest of the staff were busy with their work, he kept talking about himself. "You know, I actually dated Susan." My hand stopped for a moment at his words, and I forgot to breathe. "But Susan, she acts like a competent woman at work, but she's utterly hopeless at housekeeping." After boasting about his marriage, Mark started bad-mouthing Susan. Honestly, I had no idea what he was trying to say. "Don't you think it's inconceivable for a woman to be incapable of doing housework?" When Mark burst into hearty laughter after saying this, everyone in the room felt a sense of repulsion. Susan always worked harder than anyone else, and she shamefully admitted to me that she wasn't very good at housework. When she admitted this and felt sorry, she made a sad smile. Because I knew this side of Susan, I could not accept Mark's remark, so I objected. "What's wrong with a woman who can't do housework?" Surprised and annoyed by my sudden opposition, Mark's face twisted. However, when the other employees also started voicing their objections, he had no choice but to retreat back to his department with a disgruntled look. After work, I decided to check on Susan. "Susan, it's me, Jeff," I said, greeting her through the intercom. Susan, who looked wary, opened the door for me. "Jeff, what's up? Did something go wrong at work?" Assuming that I came to consult her about work, I told her that wasn't the case, and that I came to visit her. Apologizing for the mess, she let me in. "Susan, can you eat anything?" She had recovered from her fever but still felt quite drained. In response to my question, she just shook her head and took a seat on the couch. After I made her some simple rice soup in her kitchen, she happily accepted it. "Jeff, you'll make a good husband," she said with a gentle smile. In front of that gentle smile, I couldn't hide my feelings anymore. "I want to be your husband, Susan." In the heat of the moment, I confessed my love. Susan was naturally surprised and even dropped her cup. "What are you saying, Jeff? I'm over 10 years older than you, and I can't even do housework. There are plenty of younger, more domesticated girls out there. You should reconsider." Though Susan's voice sounded sad, I knew I couldn't back down now and voiced my feelings. Age doesn't matter to me. As for housework, we can support each other. You've always supported me at work, so I'll support you at home. This confession, akin to a marriage proposal, left Susan looking baffled, but she still responded with a happy smile. I'm really touched by your feelings, Jeff, but could we maybe start as friends? I can't even think about dating someone right now. I thought she might reject me. Perhaps she's subtly trying to reject me now. I felt confused by her let's be friends proposal. But I decided that staying positive was the best way to move forward. Absolutely. Then I spent the rest of the visit talking about why I liked her. Susan listened with a bashful smile. After I left, she texted me a single word, "Thanks." It felt like I was experiencing the innocence of first love. On the way home, I found myself running as fast as I could. The next day, Susan safely returned to work. The project we'd been working on also proceeded smoothly to its conclusion, to everyone's relief. And then, I decided to take on a new challenge. It was a call for proposals for a new project within the company. Susan encouraged me to take part in this, even though I hadn't achieved anything noteworthy in my career yet. After my father died from an illness, my mother raised me and my brother on her own. I wanted to repay her kindness in some way. If my proposal was accepted, I felt I could do something meaningful. Under Susan's guidance, I worked hard on this. The new project I proposed focused on providing emotional care for people who were caring for sick family members. Given that our company had connections with healthcare institutions, I thought we could do something meaningful for them. The pain that the individual and their family go through is immeasurable. I've seen this pain firsthand. I still vividly remember my mom crying in secret when she found out about my dad's illness. Unfortunately, my dad passed away. Even though I couldn't save them, I wanted to be there for them, to support them. My new project proposal, with all these emotions, won the CEO's award. "Congratulations, Jeff," Susan said as she brought a cake to celebrate, her eyes filled with joy. "This is all thanks to you, Susan, thank you," I said, taking the cake, hiding my shyness. "What's this? Are you two an item?" Mark walked in, teasing us. Upon seeing Susan, Mark snorted in amusement and turned to me. "Stay away from Susan. She can't even do household chores. You'll be fed up soon. I know because I broke up with her for that," he said, laughing and insulting Susan. Susan was about to retaliate, but I stepped in between them. "I seriously like Susan. It doesn't feel good to have someone like you insulting her. Could you apologize?" Susan blushed at my straightforward words, and Mark, perhaps not expecting that I was really in love, looked surprised. "Susan is much older than you, Jeff. Aren't there plenty of better women than her out there?" Mark said, which dimmed Susan's mood again. "Age doesn't matter, and what's wrong with not being able to do household chores?" Unable to respond to my words, Mark glared and walked away without saying a word. "Susan has many wonderful qualities beyond her inability to do chores, Mark. You knew these qualities and that's why you liked her, right?" Perhaps my words hit home because Mark looked guilty for a moment as he looked at Susan and then left the room without a word. An awkward silence filled the room we were left in. It was as if I'd made a public confession. While I was trying to figure out what to say, Susan broke the silence. "Thank you for defending me, Jeff. I'm really happy, and your confession, it made me happy too," she said, thanking me over and over again. "I just did what was right," I replied. "I like you too, Jeff," she said, and smiled faintly. I couldn't help but cheer at the unexpected development. "I did it." Susan laughed at my reaction, and I laughed along with her. And that's how we officially started dating. A year later, Susan, who had come to my family home, put her hands together in front of my father's gravestone. After winning the CEO's award with my new project proposal, I got promoted, and to celebrate the promotion, I took my mom and brother on a trip. It was a place where there are full of memories with my parents. My mom remembered my dad and cried while smiling. My brother and I also cried remembering our father. The reason Susan came to my family home was to ask for my mother's approval for our marriage. My mom happily gave her blessing and asked Susan to take care of me. Susan also bowed her head and thanked her. One notable thing that happened afterward was that Mark, who had looked down on Susan, came to apologize. Apparently, after getting married and having a child, a cold atmosphere began to spread in his home because he did not help with the chores. And it was his wife's words, echoing the hurtful ones he'd once hurled at Susan, that made him reflect on the past. In retrospect, he remembered that despite her struggles, Susan was always committed to her household chores. On the other hand, Mark hadn't even tried. He realized this difference and felt remorse for treating Susan so poorly while she was trying so hard. Now, he shared in the household chores in an effort to improve his relationship with his wife. Similarly, Susan and I, living together, have divided our chores. I'm in charge of cleaning and taking out the trash. Susan handles the laundry, and we alternate cooking duties. We cover for each other's weaknesses and live happily together. In our home, as we prepare to get married, we are also expecting a new life in 6 months. Surely, our lives will become even more challenging, but we are confident that together, we can overcome any obstacle.